Wait, zoom in on this. I apparently wrote a song called Achilles in 2019. That's crazy. Don't get any of those lyrics. I'm sure they're fucking horrible.
If you're asking who I am in comparison to like the last time that we did this, I would say that I can't really pinpoint an exact change on like who I am, but Opal begs to differ. But I actually do feel like in the past 8 months, a lot has changed in my life. I feel like I'm very much more sure of myself as an artist and as a person, and I have a lot more to share with people. And part of that is just that I feel like a lot of growing up has been done in the past year, just in my career and who I am and the country that we live in. It just feels like there was a lot of change going on. So I think that I'm just more confident in who I am and what I want to do. And I'm excited to share that with people. When we put out Downers Grove, it sort of came together almost on accident. I feel like I was just writing a lot about experiences that I had not talked about really, and I used songwriting as a way of processing. And the through line for that project kind of came about just on accident from that. What's different about this album specifically is that I saw the idea or the themes and things that I wanted to talk about earlier, and I decided to write things specifically for that concept. Not to say that I was not also writing a million songs that were all over the place, subject matter wise. That just didn't make it onto the project, but it really was like a focused project, I guess. Like I knew what I wanted it to sound like. I knew what I wanted it to look like, and I knew what I wanted to say, and I was less willing to compromise the way that I wanted to go about having the songs presented to people, whether it is like through unconventional songwriting or song structure, or not trying to make myself sound like anybody else, just kind of doing what feels natural to me. The album opens with the song called Threat, which is an older song. I wrote it in, I think, at the end of 2023. I kind of wanted it to sound like you are sort of maybe stumbling upon like an old tape, maybe a tape belonging to someone that you knew before, and you're realizing as you're listening to this tape that you should not be listening to it. Like that's kind of the vibes. It presents a situation in which somebody is showing love to someone else in a way that is bordering on uncomfortable or scary or vulnerable. And it's putting both parties involved in a really difficult position, and it's complicated and it's messy. There's a lot of gray area, and I thought that was a perfect opener for the album because that's kind of a lot of the themes that get explored throughout the record. And it just felt like the best sort of uncomfortable way to start the project, and it's a really special one. And Opal's meow is in it, which is fun. Wait, is this annoying for me to show this? I'm like, is this annoying? I wrote the ending of Threat to end on the same chord as Jaime's Daydreams starts. Jaime's Daydreams is kind of a reflection on a friend that I had in high school who was sort of one step ahead of me in terms of figuring things out about like love and sex and dating online and what that looked like at the time when we were like younger and not sure really what was the right thing to do and not really sure of ourselves also. And so looking for someone to tell us what we were, and then realizing as I was writing the song, because it started sort of as like a story song where I'm just sort of figuring out, I was like, oh yeah, I'm remembering this friend of mine, and maybe I should write about this. I've never really written about him before. And then I was like, oh, I sort of became him at some point down the line. I was like, all these behaviors that I'm writing about, I also did. Not saying they're bad or good, just like not commenting on it, just realizing that like I sort of became him at one point. And so then the song became more about me figuring out why that switch happened. Jailer. What if that was it? Next. The record as a whole felt like it was missing something. Like when we were putting together the final track list, I felt like it still needed more of a a story song, and something that was pertaining to the love that I wanted to explore, like different types of love and different times that I've been vulnerable. And I went back and forth about sharing the song because on paper, it's like a pretty embarrassing sort of situation. But in writing it, I've lost all shame about the situation, which is really good, I think. I think that's progress. It's about time in the summer in between high school and college. I was hooking up with a boy in a car, and it wasn't even that dramatic of a situation that happened, but a cop like flashed their flashlight in the car and was like, you need to stop doing that here on the street, which is so fair. But what the song really explores underneath that is the way that people sort of react to shame and how they internalize shame, and then the way that they sort of respond to that. On paper, it might just look like I'm saying a story and that's it, but really the song is trying to figure out, like, okay, I reacted to this situation in one way and I expected the person I was with to be with me and to support me through that, and they didn't. So this song is sort of exploring why that happened. I I wrote The Cage when I had COVID, which I don't usually write music when I'm sick because that is not at all when inspiration comes to me. I already had the chords, and then I had 102-degree fever, and I was like, oh, suddenly I'm angry. I was seeing somebody who was much older than me in high school who wanted to keep whatever was going on between us a secret, which at the time I thought was cool and like sort of exciting. But with time passing and now that I'm older, I'm seeing perhaps the real reasons why that was kept under wraps. I wanted to take sort of the victim narrative that I sometimes it is easy for me to write myself the victim. It's just something, I think maybe like an impulse to want people to feel sorry for me. So it's a challenge to present that situation and then dig myself out of that to be like, you are not always the victim. You don't need to present yourself as a victim. Let's try to look at things from a more sort of outside perspective, which is why the chorus shifts in meaning in the second half of the song. Instead of once you're free, then you're mine. Once I'm free, then you're mine. It just takes on a different meaning to me and hopefully to other people in a way of just like escaping a narrative that you've sort of been pushed into and like reclaiming your sense of self, which I think is important and cool. And it's a rock song, which I always wanted to do. So I had this crazy idea for a music video that I brought to our creative team. I wanted to sort of have the music video be a theoretical situation of the moments after the song, not necessarily reflecting the story that is being told in the song itself, which could have been really confusing, but came together really awesome. I sort of had this idea that I was like, and what if I, in my head, at some point got revenge on this person who wronged me and I killed them? What would it look like if I was just leaving the room afterwards, walking through the house, and sort of not feeling bad about it in the end and having like a triumphant angle? Everyone was super supportive of that and we made it work. We went to Jersey and filmed in a house with no heat, and it was one take, so we had to do it like over 10 times and everything had to be perfectly put together and everyone had to be on their A game, walking backwards downstairs with a camera, which is crazy. Yeah, it was amazing. It was like the most supportive environment ever and like the perfect sort of like hypothetical end to that song too. What a nice little period to put on that story. I love Lonely Gift. That's all I say. But I do. Yeah, this is another song where it starts as me positioning myself as sort of the victim of circumstance, or maybe a victim of the people that I choose to surround myself with. And then sort of being like, let's dig out of that and see if we can look at things from a bigger picture. It's really just about trying to be there for somebody who is treating you like shit, which is not the most fun experience at all, obviously, But when you care about someone, you want to help them and you want to lift them up, make them feel good. And if they're treating you badly, but you still love them, you want to stick through it sometimes. I'm not saying that that is necessarily the way that I feel about things now, but it was nice to write about them in that way. Call of Duty is the first song that I wrote for the album. 2022, I think I wrote that song. And it must have been because we got to the point where we were maybe going to put it out on Downers Grove, and I was like, I want to keep this song, and I want to work on it, and I want to think about it, and I want it to feel like it makes sense in a project. The song is an exploration of violence and sort of just about my family also. The first verse is about my mother, and her mother was shot and killed when my mom was 21 in a parking lot going to church in her car. And that like had insane repercussions on my family and the way that we sort of navigate the way we approach violence. For instance, I used to make these movies with my brothers, which I would write and direct and star in. Thank you. And as I got older in these movies, I would like sort of write more violent situations and like get fake blood, and we had these like fake guns, and we would do like spy stuff and like whatever, you know, sort of innocent take on violence. We weren't trying to like really capture anything too realistic. It just prompted a lot of uncomfortable situations, and like my mom sitting us down to like tell us why this really upset her was something that will stick with me for a long time. And so the first verse is about that, and the second verse is about the first and only time since moving to New York that I've been sort of the subject of like a violent situation, which I also want to make clear that New York is a very safe city. This does not happen all the time. Yeah, just one thing led to another, and just something happened to me, and it was like, it really like rocked my world for a second, and it like made me unsure of where I was and it like what I was doing with my life. And like the people I was surrounded with, I felt like I couldn't talk to them about it too, which like really felt strange because I absolutely could have. And then I was like, why am I not talking to people about this? And in writing the song, it was like just a sort of dark, silly connection, realizing that I was the same age that this happened to me as my mom was when her mom died. And I was like, really, those two things are not connected. But for the purpose of a song, finding a connection like that, I was like, well, that gives me the perfect excuse to dissect all of this. I wrote the last verse to kind of just like let it go, sort of like live action therapy songwriting, just to sort of have the song end on a note of like, and this is how we move on. This is how we honor my grandmother. This is how I don't hold a grudge against this person who hurt me, because if you just react to violence with like more violence, then nothing is going to get done. And having Call of Duty kind of come right into the center of the album, I think acts as like a perspective shift, especially since the song itself is about sort of like coming to terms with something and going more internal and think like taking outside situations and like coming back to my family and coming back to like the things that I hold really close to my heart. It felt sort of natural to have Family Party come after that as, okay, we've gone back to the family situation. Now we're going to sort of dig through that history and dig through that relationship there with a song about feeling isolated during the holidays. But in my case, I just had a lot of the time growing up, not as much now, but a lot of the time growing up, I felt very isolated when I would spend long amounts of time with some of my family, extended family. Coming back home for the holidays sort of threw me back to a time where I was way more insecure. And that trigger can be really difficult. Origami Roses is, I knew that I was going to write about it at some point. It was only a matter of time. And for a project about vulnerability and love and fear, I couldn't not have a song about this situation on the album. It's interesting reflecting on a time where at the time I was doing everything I could to not like not have my reality be my reality. Like I was so in denial about the situation that was happening, which was I was sort of somebody that I knew sort of developed an attachment to me, and it just got out of hand. And I was really, really unsure about how to handle the situation. Also, because this person was a boy and I was in the closet. And so I didn't even know how to talk about it without having to talk about other things in my life that I was trying to keep secret. So it only made sense for me to compartmentalize and keep this a secret as well, because it felt like if I dealt with that situation, I would have to deal with other things that I did not want to deal with at the time, which is a horrible situation for anyone to be in. But it has since completely been not a situation in my life. It was something of a long time ago to me. And so it feels like now it can be presented without any judgment or resentment, which I think is important because I don't blame anybody involved. It just was what it was. Fairy Beer. Fairy Beer just to me is like a very tender, sort of sad love song, which I write variations on that sort of theme a lot, but this was just an opportunity to write a song about being like, I wish that this person had loved me back the way that I loved them, and it didn't work out. When you're in a queer relationship and you're always aware of how other people are perceiving you, or at least I was in this relationship, that can like sort of create a really sad situation in which things don't work out, which was the case for this song. And this is also one of my like most New York songs because I'm was specifically writing it about the Staten Island Ferry, which I've taken many times in my life. Don't want to get into that too much, but just the process of getting on the ferry to go see someone, which is like a 30-minute ride when you know that this person is going to break up with you. That is like just the apprehension and like this almost like seasick like anger and sadness. With the music video, I think we kind of wanted to do more of just like a sort of symbolic approach to what the song is, or the subject matter of the song. We shot it in a pool on the Lower East Side, which was so fun. It was an overnight shoot, which was crazy. Never done those before in my life. We just wanted it to be sort of a situation in which I'm in love with somebody and we are constantly aware, of other people perceiving us and how that affects the love that we have in sort of a visual metaphor. And yeah, to have it there just felt like sad, but also gay vibes that we wanted to capture. And then the water, Fairy Atwater. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that. Huntley is named after my family dog who passed away, I think, like 3 years ago. And at the time that I wrote the song, it just so happened that my dog passed away at a time where I was sort of having a lot of feelings of like self-pity and then anger and taking it out on other people, because the way that like grief can sometimes affect me is that I start pushing people away. And the song is about less about the act of my dog passing away and more about the way that I push away people that I love who are trying to be there for me. And I liked the parallel of a dog's like unconditional love for its owner, which when you remove that, like when my dog died, like taking away that unconditional love, so you have to be held accountable for the things that you do and for being cruel to people, which when I'm in pain, sometimes I can be cruel. The song is kind of exploring that idea. Achilles is the last track on the album, and it is the title track of the album as well. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to call the song Achilles. I wasn't sure if I wanted to have a track be the name of the album. It's such a crescendo of a song and such like a huge, overwhelming like bearing of emotions and of like my soul. I was like, well, if there was any track that was going to be the title track, it's this one. Yeah, it's about when you want to declare your love for somebody, when you're in a relationship with someone and that person is nervous for whatever reason to declare their love as loudly or as proudly as you. I've been in this situation many times where I want to be with somebody and I don't want there to be any sort of outside repercussions, but because of the world that we live in, or because of the specific place that we are in, that can't happen, or someone doesn't want to do that. And it's a song about being angry about that. The whole song, I wanted the vibes to be, well, fuck it. If I can't do that, then I don't want to do anything. I'm tired of apologizing to other people for making them uncomfortable when I'm not doing anything different than the people are also doing. It's a song about just being so frustrated and wanting to like get it into both this person that I'm with's head, but also anyone around me's head, that like I am tired of apologizing and I just want to like love the same way as everybody else and have that be fine. This song just felt like it was like a release. It just felt like I'm putting it all out on the table and that is what it is. And it's messy and it's confusing and it's frustrating and it's like really, really, really tender at its core, because it's just about wanting to hold someone. I think I accomplished what I wanted to do. I wrote these songs and I didn't change anything for anyone except myself. I really wanted to be specific with what I was writing about. I wanted to take risks. I think this is a risky project, which feels really exciting to me. I think I've sang about things that I was scared to sing about, that I've not really seen a lot of people singing about, and they're all making it on the album. So I think it's a success, in my eyes at least. I'm proud of myself. I am most excited to be going on tour. I'm going on my first North American headlining tour for Achilles, which I'm so excited about. I've never been more excited to present music to people in like a live format. I'm over the moon about these. I think it's going to be a really, really cathartic night. And I'm so pumped. One of my favorite things about music, and it's so cheesy and I don't care, it is so wonderful to see people connecting to the things that you've written, always. And it's so exciting also as like someone who listens to music to get to do that with other artists and then have artists listening to me and other people listening to me, and like it creates this connection and this like familiarity that is really, really, really special. So I'm excited for that, obviously. As silly as it sounds, considering everything that is going on right now in the world, it gives me like a great amount of faith in humanity that the art that is being made right now is not compromising, that there are artists embracing their identities and that is being praised and lauded by people, and that there are communities everywhere that are here and ready to take people in, and music is such a lovely way of reaching out to people. And I'm very excited to just continue to write authentically and to like bring people together, because that is honestly the point. That's the point of art.